Alright, this video is going to teach you about composite figures or shapes, depending on what you want to call it. A composite shape or figure is made up of two or more of the 2D figures that we have studied, or more shapes. For example, here we have some composite shapes, and if you wanted to find the area of these shapes, you would break them up into smaller parts and then find the area of the parts, add them together, and it would be the area of the overall shape. So, for example, this dotted line right here separates the shape into two parts. We got a square and a rectangle. Then you would find the area of this rectangle, and then you would find the area of this square, and you'd add them together, and it would be the area of the composite shape. Your composite shape can be made up of a square and a triangle. It could be a parallelogram and half of a circle. It could be anything. But when you're looking at it, you want to try and break it up, as was done here, so that you have two shapes, each that you know how to find the area of. Find the area of each of the shapes and add them together. So let's try some, shall we? Here are some samples. Now, these are not drawn to scale, and I know that drives some of you crazy. I'm sorry. The first one here, there's two ways that we can look at this problem. One, we could say, all right, well, I'm going to break it up like this. And then if this whole side is 7 and this part is 4, that means that this portion here has to be 3. If this whole side is 5, this portion right here is 3 of that 5, that means this has to be 2. So then what you do is say, all right, well, if this is shape 1 and this is shape 2, the area of shape 1 is going to be 4 times 5, which is 20. The area of shape 2 is 3 times 3, which is 9. Add those two together and you get 29, the units centimeters squared. Now this is the one way, or the first way, that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a second way. You choose which one makes more sense. You don't have to do both. That would be kind of crazy. But what you could do is you could say, all right, well, if I didn't do this, I could look at this as being a solid shape like this. And then if it's a solid shape, what I could do is I could find the area of the solid shape. So here, let me see if I can get an orangish color. There. I could look at this thing as being a solid rectangle. If it was a solid rectangle, then it would have an area of 7 times 5, which is 35. And then what I want to do is take this portion right here, which would be 3 by 2, and I want to subtract it. So I have 3 times 2 for that little area, and I have 6. And what I want to do is this. I said take this little thing and get rid of it, or subtract it from the whole thing. So I subtract it, I get 29 centimeters squared. Either way would work, whichever you prefer. This one over here, I think I'm going to choose to look at it as a solid shape. I have 14 by 12, so it's 14 times 12, which would be 168. Then I have this little portion here. I have to assume this is a square because 4 is the only thing written in there. So I have a 4 by 4 square, which is 16. Subtract the 16 from the 168, and the orange part is 152 inches squared. Try and do the last one yourself. Pause the video, try it, and then see if you get it correct. Okay, for this one, I would break it up. I would say, okay, this little portion here is 2, this little portion here is 2, and then I would say, all right, now I need to find the area of this large rectangle in the middle. It has a size of 9 plus 4, or 13. So I have a 13 by 8 for this part right here. So 1 is 13 by 8, or 104. And then I have these little parts here on the side. Those are the same. You could do them individually or you could do it together. I'm going to do it individually first. So then what I have is a 2 by 4 which is 8. And then I have another 2 by 4 on the other side, which is 8. If I add these together, I get 120 feet squared. Now, what I mean by you could do them together is you could say, all right, since these two things here are the same size, I could have just said 2 by 4s, like this. So then 2 times 4 is 8, times 2 is 16, which is what this is equal to. So if that's too confusing, don't worry about it. Just do all the little pieces then and add them together. All right, now for a challenging one. Dum, 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 dum. See if you can find the area of the shaded part. Pause the video and try it. Okay, for this one, you have a parallelogram and then you have a circle. What you need to do is find the area of the parallelogram and then subtract the circle from it. So the parallelogram is 14 by 8. Multiply these out and you get 112 feet squared. Now the circle, for that, circle is pi r squared. So I have pi, the radius is 4 squared, because it's going to be half what was given to you as the diameter. And this part is 50.24. I'm using 3.14 for pi, by the way. Subtract these, and I get 61.76 feet squared. Now, I'll have some very interesting ones for you to try. This one is pretty interesting too, but much more interesting things to come. But that's it for Composite Figures.